welcome these fools to the Uso Penitentiary. Hey. Okay, all right. Hey, let's get it, Oos. It's not paranoia, it's the Usos. Let's go, Oos. Down six. Day one is day of down six. Day one is we been down six. Day one is say line them all up, knock them down like this.
Wake up, you ain't heard the news. Thank you for joining me live on the Fast Break Sports Hour, one day before NFL kickoff, Thursday night football. Yes, we are only about 25 hours away from kickoff with the Atlanta Falcons visiting the Philadelphia Eagles. And that's what I want to get this show started off with. First of all, thank you for joining me here live on the Fast Break Sports Hour, YouTube Live. You know what it is. And we're going to get right to that game. Nick Foles, that's the biggest question for me. What Nick Foles are we going to get? Are we going to get Nick Foles, playoff ready Nick Foles wearing his cape in the playoffs, whether it's the divisional, the NFC Championship game, and then he just came full force in that Super Bowl, going toe to toe with Mr. TB12, Tom Brady. Man, are we going to get that Nick Foles? Or are we going to get Nick Foles, St. Louis, Los Angeles Rams, Nick Foles, very average to below average quarterback, the Nick Foles that passes for under 60%, the Nick Foles that we saw in this preseason? That's the Nick Foles we saw. Now, again, he's dealing with a lot of missing pieces on the offensive side. Alshon Jeffrey didn't play in the preseason. Nelson Aguilar didn't play in the preseason. No, he will have Nelson Aguilar there for tomorrow. That's the speculation at this point. Not going to have Alshon Jeffrey. On the defensive side for the Eagles, you're not going to have Michael Bennett, the big free agent acquisition that they had in the offseason from Seattle, Michael Bennett. But Zach Ertz is still there. Jay Ajayi is still there. Again, Nelson Aguilar. And they also picked up Mike Wallace. So you have to wonder what kind of rapport they've had. Again, no Nelson Aguilar throughout the preseason. So that's going to have to get going. Obviously, they played together for a handful of games last year. But to see Mike Wallace now in the fold, how much more does he have in the tank? If you've seen the last couple years, he's not really the Mike Wallace that we're used to, the Pittsburgh Steeler Mike Wallace. So it's going to be a big-time game for Zach Ertz, in my opinion. But it's all going to come down to Nick Foles and how much help he gets on the defensive side. And I'm speaking about the Philadelphia Eagles. The depth is still there. They're basically bringing back the same defense they had last year, minus plus a couple of pieces, but still everything intact. And just looking at the Eagles and the Falcons, Nick Foles had a pretty flawless game. Didn't throw for a touchdown, didn't have to. They won the game in that divisional round 15-10. That game was in Philadelphia. This game's going to be in Philadelphia. Again, he had a flawless game, 23 for 30. That's a pretty good percentage. And when you look at the run game, Jay Ajayi had around 50 yards that game. I'm kind of leaning towards that kind of game for Jay Ajayi again, anywhere between 50 to 65 yards rushing. Again, depending on how much they give him the ball, because you got to remember they got Corey Clement back there. They also have Darren Sproles still. Yep, Darren Sproles, good old little micro machine. Man, not Woody Woodpecker, but Road Runner. Hey, it's a bird, same thing. Road Runner, man, Darren Sproles can still hit that edge and take it the distance. You have to wonder how they're going to spread the ball around with those guys. Are they going to feed the hot hand, or is it just going to be a rotation type of thing? Man, what's going on, Angel? Yeah, one more day, and we're, man, NFL kicking off tomorrow. And it kind of just hits you all of a sudden, because even though you was watching the preseason just Labor Day weekend, especially with the reunion and everything that I went through over the weekend. It just came, and now it's here for tomorrow. And I want to look at the Falcons side and why they lost that game in the divisional round. Again, these teams are kind of coming back somewhat the same defensively, slight different on the offensive side, especially when you look outside. The Eagles with Mike Wallace, the new addition. The Falcons with Calvin Ridley, the rookie receiver on the offensive side. But again, the defense is still pretty much the same. Again, Michael Bennett will not be playing tomorrow. That's per reports. Again, the free agent acquisition from Seattle. But with the Atlanta Falcons, what I was looking at was their run game in that divisional round. In the divisional round last year that they lost 15-10. They ran the ball a total of 20 times for 86 yards, which isn't bad. That's a pretty good 4.3 average. And you kind of wonder, well, if they're able to get 4 yards a carry, they should keep running the ball with Devontae Freeman and Tevin Coleman. But that was one-sided. That was all Tevin Coleman. It's usually Devontae Freeman, and then Tevin Coleman gets a handful of the carries, third down back type of play. But no, Devontae Freeman had 10 carries for 7 yards that game. Yeah, 10 carries for 7 yards, less than 1 yard a carry. And it was actually Tevin Coleman who had the other 10 carries, but he took it for 79 yards. So I think if the Falcons could have redone a couple things in that game, I think feeding Tevin Coleman more. Obviously, I mean, if you carry the ball 10 for 79 times, almost 8 yards a carry, I think he's going to be the guy that's a hot hand. He was a hot hand in that game, but they were staying true to form with Devontae Freeman being the starter. Sometimes you got to change on the fly. And that's one thing I don't think the Falcons figured out. And if you look at it, if you look at the year before in the Super Bowl, they did the opposite to where Devontae Freeman was the hot hand and he was running all over the Patriots in that Super Bowl, and they stopped running Devontae Freeman. So it was like the next year when you should have just handed the reins over to Tevin Coleman in that playoff game and that loss to the Philadelphia Eagles, they just split it. And Matt Ryan didn't have a bad game. He threw a touchdown pass, no picks. Julio Jones had a pretty decent game, and I think that's going to be the key again for the Falcons is making sure that whoever's running the ball good, keep feeding that guy, and if they're both running the ball good, then just keep run. It's an early game when it comes to the season. It's week 1. Usually the teams that can run the ball better early on and have somewhat of a better defense, those are the teams that are going to win because you're still figuring out what your team's all about. Obviously, both these teams have high hopes coming from the playoffs last year. The Eagles winning the Super Bowl, defending champions. And that's one thing I want to get to as well. The Eagles and defending champions, and also my prediction as to them repeating. Yesterday, I said I wasn't going to change my prediction, but I have to change it. I'm letting you know right now that the Eagles are not going to win the Super Bowl because I expected Carson Wentz to be ready by the end of preseason. I expected him to be ready for week 1. He still might be ready for week 2, but with that being his first game action, I think there's going to be a little bit of growing pains. And I still believe they can make the playoffs, and I think they will make the playoffs, but they're not going to be the number 1 seed. And that was the reason why I had them going to the Super Bowl, because Philadelphia at home is different than Philadelphia on the road with the young Carson Wentz. So, yes, I'm backing off my Super Bowl prediction that I made a month ago on the first show. It's not going to be the Eagles no more. You're going to have to find out on Friday when I do the whole week 1 preview of all the games. You'll find out Friday who my new Super Bowl representative of the NFC is. And does the NFC take it again? Or does my AFC pick, which was the Los Angeles Chargers, I'm not going to come off of that. There's no reason for me to do so. Everything is still intact there. I'm not making my change, my prediction, based on what I'm feeling. It's just what I see. It's Carson Wentz isn't there. I don't know when he's going to come back. Even if he comes back week 2, that's not enough for me. I need to see him ready week 1. Good old Carson Wentz, mobile quarterback. Again, have to remember, Carson Wentz got hurt towards the end of the season. He tore his ACL. That was week 14. It's not like he tore his ACL in the middle of the season or early on. So he's still, he's still kind of early on his return. So, yes, I'm sorry. I'm changing my Super Bowl pick. It's not the Eagles. They're not going to represent the NFC this year. Still expect them to be a fringe playoff team. But you're going to find out on Friday when I go through all the games and big games on Sunday, man. You got Tom Brady going against Deshaun Watson. You got Cam Newton going against Dak Prescott. You got Jalen Ramsey going against Odell Beckham Jr. Man, you know the trash talking is going to be live and well in that game because Jalen Ramsey is not afraid to open his mouth and tell you what he feels. And Odell Beckham, are you going to respond or how is this going to turn out? We'll see. That's going to make it interesting this week. We also have Aaron Rodgers going against Khalil Mack Sunday Night Football. And then we have the Seattle Seahawks visiting the Denver Broncos. And most of y'all, well, that's not a big game. Well, to me, it is because you look at two dominant defenses in the last 2 or 3 years, especially the Legion of Boom and then the no-fly zone. It's going to be cool to see the different defenses now and how they come with it this season. So that's going to be a game. Obviously, I'm a Bronco fan. I'm going to be paying attention to that. I'm going to keep it real. But those games and more, again, we'll talk about that on Friday. Talk about my new NFC champion and go from there. But back to the Falcons and Eagles. I mentioned this last week to where if Nick Foles starts off the season, and let's say he actually plays 2 or 3 games, and let's say he's burning hot. Carson Wentz coming back, let's say a week 4 or week 5, and let's say the Eagles are 3-0, 4-0, and Nick Foles is the MVP candidate. Let's just put it out there. Does Nick Foles still get replaced? And a lot of you might be thinking, well, what are you talking about? Carson Wentz is their future. He's the quarterback. But do you mess up a good thing that's already there? He's been on a roll. Since he came in, he's been on a roll. Didn't lose a game. They lost that last game of the season against the Cowboys, but the starters didn't play much. So can you really take that as a Nick Foles loss? So Nick Foles, since he's been the starter for the Philadelphia Eagles, hasn't lost a meaningful game. So that's a big question. Now, if Carson Wentz is ready for week 2, it doesn't matter what Nick Foles does tomorrow night. I think you put Carson Wentz in there and take off. But again, 3 or 4 games and Nick Foles is hot and they're undefeated. Do you want to mess up that chemistry? That's the big thing. That's something that Doug Peterson, I'm pretty sure, has been thinking about, has been maybe had sleepless nights and was hoping maybe he didn't have to go through this decision. But it's right here. It's right in front of him. And we're going to find out not just tomorrow, but the week after if this decision is going to be a little bit tougher for Doug Peterson when it comes to Carson Wentz and when he returns and does he replace Nick Foles, who, again, you could say that the Eagles are in a great position because they have this Super Bowl winning quarterback from last year to kind of cover for a little bit. But it's a double-edged sword. You know, you can win games with this guy, but if he continues to win games, do you kind of break that up and bring Carson Wentz in? Because I don't care if he's 100%. That first game back, I would be shocked if Carson Wentz is the old Carson Wentz. I believe it'll take up to maybe 6 quarters for him to get back to being Carson Wentz, which isn't much. It's a game and a half, but that's just my opinion. So that's going to be fun to see tomorrow how well Nick Foles plays, because I think how Nick Foles goes, the Eagles will go. And from there to week 1, week 2, and whenever Carson Wentz feels healthy enough to return to actual live football in the regular season. And let's move it back over to the Falcons. The Falcons, who 2 years ago were the NFC darlings, the team that was a couple plays away from being the Super Bowl champion, maybe a couple decisions away from the coach, offense coordinator Mike Shanahan, to winning that Super Bowl against the New England Patriots. And had he run the ball more in that second half of that Super Bowl, I believe they would have been a slightly different outcome. And not as close as what people think, but they were giving the Patriots great field position because they were throwing the ball. And if you remember, they were throwing the ball, and on one of the plays he got strip sacked. So if you're running the ball, you don't have that option. If you're running the ball, the time's not stopping. So you put all those equations together, and again, everything is hindsight 2020. But when it was happening, it was incredible how that game unfolded. I thought there was no way the Patriots could come back. Just the sizable lead that the Falcons had. But you look at that and them not being able to make in-game changes to secure the win. And then again, last year in the divisional round, losing 15-10, when you're able to run the ball with a Tevin Coleman, but continue to hand the ball off to Devontae Freeman, who again had 10 carries for 7 yards. At some point, if I'm the coach, if I'm making the decisions, if my starter running back, has 6, 7 carries and has 5 yards, and the backup running back has 4 or 5 carries and has 40 yards, I'm going to make that change until they're going to stop the backup running back. And Tevin Coleman is not really a backup running back. He can start for a lot of teams. A lot of people view him as a change of pace back, but he brings it. And yeah, he's the speed guy, but he can also bring it inside the tackles. So that remains to be seen. Do they make better in-game decisions? When I made my predictions, I didn't have the Falcons making the playoffs. But do they now make the playoffs with me bringing the Eagles out as NFC champions? Now, I didn't say the Eagles would be out of the playoffs, but again, you'll find out Friday. And I said it yesterday, and I'm staying firm on this. My prediction for tomorrow night's game, I got the Atlanta Falcons, not the Falcons, the Falcons. I have them in somewhat of an upset just because they're the road team. They're going against the defending champions. But I don't really view it so much as an upset. I think they're pretty even football team when you talk about not having Carson Wentz there, when you talk about not having Alshon Jeffrey there, who to me isn't a top 20 receiver, but he's still a solid receiver nonetheless, and is able to create mismatches because of his size. So those are the reasons why I kind of see them more even than not, and I had the Falcons pulling this one off tomorrow night. Thursday night football, it's here, guys. It says that there's no more warnings because there isn't going to be a fast break sports hour tomorrow because I'm going to be getting fat from when I wake up to the game starts, man. Feet up. I'm going to be watching all the pregame shows, doing all that. This is the beginning of the NFL season. All of you fake fans that just watch the preseason and then forget about this game, man, I'm not talking to you. Hopefully y'all get on board. I don't think there are that many fake fans. There are a lot of bandwagon fans, which, man, do what you got to do. I stick with one team. This is it. It's tomorrow. Atlanta Falcons at the Philadelphia Eagles. I got the Falcons 27. I got the Eagles 20. I'm sticking with it. That's not changing. But that's basically what I have for that game, for the opening game preview. Now, have some other news off the field again. There's always news off the field, and not negative news, but somewhat disturbing if you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. With Le'Veon Bell again, it being the middle of the week, being Wednesday, and still not reporting. He has until I believe Friday night or Saturday morning to report and still make a paycheck. Now, there's reports coming out that the Steelers, especially since he hasn't shown up midweek, that even if he shows up, whether it be tomorrow or Friday, that he probably will not be suiting up. And it's going to be James Conner all the way starting that game against the Cleveland Browns. And James Conner has been starting the whole preseason. So the offense kind of has some familiar. Whoa, what am I trying to say? They're familiar with his play. The offense was going with him, even though Roethlisberger didn't play that much. He's pretty confident that the running back James Conner will do fairly well. Again, he's going against a Cleveland Browns defense that I believe is very underrated. And they showed it in the preseason. Again, it's preseason, but they had an awesome preseason. If all you can take is good things from the preseason, that was a good thing that the Cleveland Browns showed, was they were able to stop other teams and shut them down. And I'm not saying that lightly. That was real. Again, it was preseason, but it is what it is. You shut someone down, you shut someone down. You can't speak much more of that. So it's going to be a tough matchup for James Conner. if that decision is made here sooner rather than later. But Le'Veon Bell, it's starting to get, kind of scary for Pittsburgh Steelers fans. And his agent came out today talking about how Le'Veon Bell still expects to have his greatest season ever. That's going to be kind of tough if you're already missing week one, and not having some sort of idea of when Le'Veon Bell is going to return and when he's going to decide to return. I'm pretty sure it's going to happen somewhat here in the next couple days to secure that near the $1 million check that he's supposed to get for each game he plays. Again, this is a $14.5 million franchise tender that he still hasn't signed, and that's the issue. But he's milking it, and whether he has some sort of, I'm not sure if, obviously none of us are sure, but the Steelers are sounding like they don't know what's going on, but there has to be someone in that organization that has an idea of what Le'Veon Bell is planning on doing, whether it be him showing up Thursday, which is tomorrow, showing up Friday, or if he's going to do the last minute thing. I'm pretty sure someone knows something. But again, because he hasn't signed or whatever, they're just keeping it under wraps until he actually shows up and just go from there. But just speaking on like fantasy terms, it kind of sucks because I know a lot of people would draft Le'Veon Bell first or in the top five at the bare minimum when you're talking about fantasy football. So you're basically going to have your first round pick and not play Sunday. So I hope you have a backup plan. Le'Veon Bell's on my team, so I need a backup plan. I drafted James Conner, so that's my backup plan for now. I'm just hoping it's not one of these things where, I mean, if you're a Steeler fan, you'll take Le'Veon Bell whether it's 5 carries, 8 carries, 4 carries on Sunday. But I don't want that. If he's not going to play, let me know. I would much rather him not suit up, or if he's going to suit up, say, you know what, he's going to play start in the second quarter or something, because you're going to mess my week up. Either give me James Conner full force or let me put somebody else in. Do not do this to me. But it is what it is. Pittsburgh Steelers fans, they understand that this is probably the last year Le'Veon Bell and the Steelers will have this marriage before it's broken up. And you have to feel that with this being Le'Veon Bell's last year, in my opinion, with the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Steelers are going to milk Le'Veon Bell. And maybe that has something to do with Le'Veon Bell waiting for the last second to come in, because he understands that he's going to get milked. He's going to get more carries than ever. That he's going to get the load because there's no other reason why not to. This is your last year on the team, and you're still a top 3 running back, if not the best running back in the league when it comes to just not just running the ball, but being able to catch the ball out of the backfield. They're gonna, man, that tank will be empty at the end of the season. So that's probably part of the reason why Le'Veon Bell is saying, you know what, I'm not gonna show up until the last minute, the last second, and because I know these last 15 weeks or 15 games, it's gonna be full force. So, or maybe he's holding out hope that the Steelers decide to give him the contract he wants. I don't see that happening. It would have happened by now. And or get a trade. I don't see that happen just because it's getting too close to week one. So that's going to be fun to see unless you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan or the owner of Le'Veon Bell in your fantasy football league. You're like, man, why did this have to happen? But if you're a Le'Veon Bell owner, you understand things like this happen, whether he's suspended for drugs, whether he's doing a holdout like he did last year and showing up last minute and getting 10 carries for 32 yards. So there you have it. Le'Veon Bell, still no word when he's going to show up. Another player that was holding out, Earl Thomas, who said he wasn't going to show up until the season started, finally showed up today for the Seattle Seahawks for that last piece standing from the Legion of Boom. And you have to ask yourself, yes, he is a top 5 safety in the NFL, if not the best, top 5 at the bare minimum. Is he going to be not just ready, but since he hasn't been playing with all these young players in the secondary, is he going to be able to dictate or just kind of put players in position? Because that's what he does. he's the leader of that backfield and on the defensive side when you talk about the secondary, and maybe even gets players into position with all these young players in the secondary now. Are they going to have that camaraderie to where he's going to be able to direct these guys and have them play? And is he even going to play on Sunday versus the Denver Broncos? For the Denver Broncos' sake, they're just like, man, you don't have to play. you know, uh, I think you should take the week off. But that's going to be something that's going to be something to see as well, is how impactful his play is if he does play week one at Denver, Mile High Stadium. I don't know if they even have a name for that stadium yet. They were like Sports Authority Field, even though Sports Authority wasn't even in business. They took that down. I don't know what they are now, so I'm just gonna call it Mile High Stadium. That's what it should always be called, anyways. So that's gonna be something to see. But we'll get to those games on Friday. We'll run down the whole list of games, whether it be Sunday or Monday night, because Monday night there is a doubleheader, and we're gonna be in depth and talk about these games full force. But that's what I have for y'all when it comes to football for today. Baseball, not much changes when it comes to the standings because, especially in NL West, each team took care of business. So nothing changed there. They did what they were supposed to. The Rockies took care of the Giants, the Dodgers took care of the Mets, and the Diamondbacks shut out the Padres. So nothing changes there. You have the Cubs who lost to the Brewers. Brewers are getting closer and closer. And you have the Cardinals who also won, so they're also getting closer to the Cubs. And speaking of getting closer, the Atlanta Braves just lost their third straight to the Boston Red Sox, and Boston Red Sox come back in miraculous fashion because they were down to a good amount of runs today, and that game's already final. The Red Sox won 9-8. So now the Phillies with a win, you're looking at 2 games out, and remember I said they have 2 series left. So this thing is getting closer and closer for Atlanta. And with them losing 3 in a row and now losing 6 out of 10 and 7 out of 11, they're giving the Phillies all the reason in the world to believe they can win the division. So that's the series continue tonight. You have the New York Mets at the Dodgers. You have the Giants at the Rockies. You have the Padres at the D-backs. Again, the Braves lost. The Phillies are in action tonight. The Cubs will play the Brewers again tonight, and the Cardinals are in action tonight. So that's all you need to know when it comes to that race. Not much has changed besides the Braves dropping one and the Cubs kind of being lazy with that lead they have. It's getting a little bit smaller, I'll tell you that much. I think the Cubs are playing with fire a little bit because I don't think they're playing up to their capabilities. Maybe they just hit a little snag on the road here. But to lose to the Brewers, and they've lost 2 games straight to the Brewers, and this being the third game, Brewers are only 3 games back. Brewers with a win tonight will be 2 games out of first place. The Cardinals with the win tonight and the Brewers win tonight will be 3.5 out of first place. And these teams play against each other. So, last week I'm thinking the Cubs got this settled. Even on Monday, I'm thinking the Cubs got this settled. When the Cubs were a good 4-game lead, a 5-game lead on Monday. Not happening now. It's getting real good in every division now. Again, Braves lose again. Phillies got a shot there. They're playing the Marlins. That should be an easy win. So you're looking at Phillies possibly being 2 games behind the Braves. And again, you got the Rockies and Giants. That's a division matchup. The Giants like to be a thorn in people's sides when you talk about the NL West, whether it be the Dodgers, whether it be the Diamondbacks, and now the Rockies. But the Rockies have been able to put the Giants away so far. The Giants are sleeping right now. The Rockies have taken the first 2. We have this third game tonight for the Colorado Rockies and the Diamondbacks, who lost that first one to the Padres. They were able to shut out the Padres as they should. So everyone's playing the same teams tonight. Wednesday night, will we see changes tonight? You damn well we will. Or you damn right we will. It's going to happen. You're not going to have it to where all these teams win every night. There's going to be some changes. And I believe with the Braves losing, you're going to see a couple more of these teams lose and have the ones under them or above them win to either get closer or separate themselves a little bit more. I think the Cubs have to win tonight. The Cubs have to beat the Brewers tonight or today. It's not that late of a start. They're coming up here shortly. If not, man, that's I can't tell you who's going to win the Central if the Brewers win tonight. That's going to be crazy. But when it comes to baseball and just sports in general, shorter show. A small preview when it came to the Eagles and Falcons. I talked about them yesterday. I talked about Nick Foles yesterday and what I felt as to what we were going to see and what are we going to see with Nick Foles. Which one are we going to get? You have two sides of the Nick Foles story, and the successful side is, though it's a greater accomplishment with the Super Bowl win, that sample size is smaller than the average Nick Foles. I've seen Nick Foles average more so than great. So it's what have you done for me lately? He's the Super Bowl champion. You have to give him that. And until someone knocks him off, right now he's riding high. He's a defending champion quarterback, and he's the starting quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles tomorrow. So again, guys, I appreciate you guys joining me. Shorter show. Not much has really changed. Just gave you guys some information on off-field things, especially with the guys that were holding out or are holding out, and whether or not they came back. And that Le'Veon Bell thing, man, you got to come back, dude. I need you to come back for my fantasy team, dude, because, like, people like to talk smack. And they think that because I do a show that I should be able to manhandle. You can't control what these players do, man. I can draft as well as anybody, but if these players don't produce, my draft ain't, you know what? It's bull sugar. So it's not only that, making the right decisions. So anybody could win, man. When it comes to fantasy football, I don't know more than the next guy because I'm not the one putting on the pads. Now, if I was putting on the pads, man, I'd be running by some people in my league, not in real life, in my league, just like that. But yeah, not much has changed in baseball. American League, like I've mentioned, that's the same. Nothing doing there. Tomorrow, again, opening night, NFL, Thursday night football. Let's go, guys. Come on. What you guys waiting for? Let's get this hype train going. Thursday night football, tomorrow night, a little over 24 hours away. Philadelphia Eagles, defending champions, hosting Matt Ryan and the Atlanta Falcons. Who comes out on top? Which running back from the Falcons comes out on top? Is it Devontae Freeman, or is it now time for Tevin Coleman to be that starting running back? Or are they just going to keep splitting? That remains to be seen. Julio Jones, is he still Julio Jones, or is he going to start passing the torch over to Calvin Ridley? Ooh-wee. That's going to be some good stuff to watch. I believe Julio Jones is still Julio Jones. And Calvin Ridley will be pretty good rookie wide receiver. We'll see how much play he gets. That's the big thing. But again, NFL season tomorrow. There's no reason for me to continue to elaborate on that. I've said enough when it comes to the game. Now it's just time for these two teams to rock it. Now it's time for us to sit back and, again, get fat, watch these games. And won't be a show tomorrow, but there will be a show on Friday to preview all of the games on Sunday, the two games on Monday, and maybe sprinkle in some Major League Baseball updates. Because if I'm not doing a show tomorrow and I'm doing it on Friday, some things are bound to change, even though there's only like 5 games tomorrow, and really the playoff teams in the NL, not much going on there tomorrow. So again, Friday, we'll see what happens today in baseball. Breaking down all the games, longer show. I appreciate you guys for joining me here on the Fast Break Sports Hour. Subscribe, like, comment, do whatever you guys want to do. Check it out. Give me your opinions. And I'm going to keep doing this for the love of it, man. I love doing this. And I don't care if one person watches me or if 80,000 watch me. Because it's going to get to that whether anybody likes it or not. That's just a fact. You got to see it to believe it. That's how you got to do things. You got to see it. You have to be there before it'll actually happen. It's going to happen, man. Fast Break Sports Hour. Be a part of it early. Say, you know what? I was there from the get and watch this show and let me know what you think. Tell me why I suck. Tell me why I don't suck or whatever. We like to do a little we'll talk back and forth, see what happens. When people pop up on here live or whatnot, I don't really go back and forth. I'll read into the comments afterwards and then kind of, if I have to respond or whatnot. But once we get to that, we'll see what's going on. So, again, thank you for joining me. Fast Break Sports Hour, Wednesday, September 5th, 2018. Football tomorrow. Stay tuned, man. Football's rocking. Let's get it. Fast Break Sports Hour.